Hey friends, thanks so much for joining me for the Daily Treasure podcast today. We are continuing in our Christmas theme. Last week we talked about Christmas grief relief, and this week we are going to be talking about following the star. Today's devotional is called Keeper of the Stars, and today's treasure is from Psalm 147, verses 3 through 4. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He determines the number of the stars, and he calls them each by name. About a month after the death of our son Mark, we traveled to the Outer Banks of North Carolina for our annual extended family reunion. None of us had the energy or heart for a week of celebrating, but the location held a special meaning because of all the Mark memories. And son Dan was desperate to be where Mark and he experienced so many adventures. As expected, many tears flowed, and our extended family was unsure how to help us. The cousins close to Mark took comfort from being together, freely grieving and asking deep spiritual questions. My journal reminds me of one of those intimate nights of clinging to one another, longing for a supernatural touch from the Lord. August 1993, North Carolina. Oh God, you are so wholly other, so distant, so big, so far away, the God of creation. Yet you are ever present, close by, touching my soul, binding up my wounded heart. How can you be both? Psalm 147, verses 3 through 4 promises, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He determines the number of the stars and calls them each by name. Last night, as we sat on the deck with Jim and Nina, we talked quietly about the past few weeks of grief. After they left, Chuck and I embraced and looked up at the stars. I didn't tell Chuck, but Lord, you know what I was thinking. If only I could ask you for a sign. Throw down a star. Lord, let me know by that falling star, falling at just this instance, that Mark is close by. But I didn't ask for that sign because I know you don't do things like that, right? And if you didn't do what I asked, I would have one more reason to suspect your presence. Just then the kids came up from the beach looking sheepish. Young Chuck hesitated and then said, we were sitting on two different blankets. Melanie and I were talking about the possibility of that each star represents a child of God in heaven. After all, God told Abraham that his descendants would number the stars. Dan, Mandy, Jill, and Chrislyn were on another blanket saying the same things. Dan pointed out a blinking star and said, it might be Mark's. Suddenly, we all saw a bright, large shooting star that crossed the whole sky. I don't want to make too big a deal of all this, but Dad, would God do something like that as a sign of His glory and control? To let us know that He hears us? It was like Mark heard our conversation, and God gave him permission to let us know. Husband Chuck laughed and said, 2 months ago, I might have been able to answer that question. I probably would let you think it was a sign, but in my heart, I would believe it was just a coincidence. But now, well, I just don't know. I'm learning that the veil between this world and the next is gossamer thin. A few minutes later, my broken-hearted husband jumped up and stepped outside. Young Chuck looked at me, puzzled by his dad's exit. I smiled. He's looking for his star. No sooner had I said those words than Chuck stepped back inside, wide-eyed. I just saw my star. It was like a ball of fire, and it went right over the house. It appeared to be skimming over the roof. He continued, as I opened the door, I prayed, give me a star. Show me your glory, Lord. I looked up over the house rather than over the ocean, and there was this ball of fire streaking over the roof. I've never seen anything like it. It was so big and close, I imagined I could have touched it. This morning, still soothed by the stars, but heavy with sorrow, the enemy whispered, the star was a coincidence. Lots of stars fall at this time of year. God doesn't care about you. Even though He could send a star for you, He didn't, and He wouldn't. He's mean. Then I saw a little book on my dresser, written by grieving parents, and I knew the title was your response to my doubts, Keeper of the Stars. The title is like a gentle squeeze from you. Sharon, ask me and watch what I can do. I'm going to hold on to this treasure as a special blessing from you, an acknowledgement of our need for a special touch. You are the keeper of the stars, and you are the keeper of my heart. Friends, our experience on the North Carolina beach was not the first time God used the star to lead people to Jesus. I invite you to follow the star to Bethlehem, and along the way, we will meet firsthand witnesses to the birth of Jesus, as well as those who wanted him dead. Obstacles and mundane distractions might slow down our journey, just as they did for the wise men, but I suspect those distractions can be treasures of Christmas just waiting for our discovery. Friends, whether you are grieving or walking a steady path of mundane moments, embracing a life of joy and peace, we can still miss the treasures of Christmas, just as many were blind to the coming of our Savior that first Christmas. Take a few minutes right now and ask the Lord to open the eyes of your heart to His presence all around you. When the stresses of an added layer of work, preparation, or expenses threaten to undo you, stop, pray, breathe in and whisper, "The Lord is my shepherd," and then breathe out whispering, "I shall not want." Practice the sweet way of steadying your focus and reminding yourself that no matter what the day holds, the Lord goes before you and will give you the wisdom and patience for each task. O Lord, you are the keeper of the stars. You call each one by name, and yet even more, you call us by name. When we lose our resolve to stay focused on you, pull us back to a quiet moment of remembering you are also our shepherd and provide everything we need. Friends, thanks so much for joining us for the Daily Treasure podcast, and we appreciate so much when you send us a note about how God is using this devotional to help turn your heart toward Jesus. And when you do send us those notes, we're putting your name in a drawing, and we pick out 3 winners every month. So, and you get a special prize. So you are encouraging us, and we hope to encourage you as you win that prize. As we end our time together, I want to share one more treasure from Scripture, and it's from Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 8. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. So wherever God takes you today, remember you're not going alone. He is keeping the promise of his presence. Thanks so much again for joining us, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.